Hello and welcome to Addicted to Lacrosse. This is Season 3, Episode 9. Today is Sunday, February the 28th, 2016. My name is Graham Perro, and with me, as always, are Melissa Daphne and Tyler Fitch. Melissa's got her video working, so we can actually see Melissa for the first time in several weeks, so that's a good thing. Um, no news to talk about this week, but a whole bunch of really interesting games. So this is going to be a fun one, I think. I guess we'll start off with Friday's game. Buffalo over Saskatchewan, 19-18 in overtime. And Steven Stamp wrote a pretty funny article on Isle Indoor today, which I just skimmed over before the show. I haven't really read it in great detail, but he was talking about the juiced ball controversy in baseball from 10 years ago or so, and wondering if that's the case in lacrosse this year, where a team can score 18 goals and lose. Yeah, I saw second half of this one. I didn't see much of the first half, but pretty exciting game. Obviously, back and forth a lot. Dane Smith had a bit of an off night, only scoring 8 points, which was below his season average. And then Mitch Jones scored the last goal of the third quarter for Buffalo, 2 goals in the fourth quarter, and the overtime winner as well. So it was a big fourth quarter for a couple of guys named Jones this week. But we'll get to the other game later. Did either of you guys see this one? Tyler, I guess we can start with you.
Yeah, I put this on Friday night. It was fun to watch. Up and down action. Mitch Jones, like you said, plus 1 goal earlier in the game. So 5 goals on the night. Probably a career high. Probably his best game in the NLL ever. It was fun to watch him succeed. He's a former Stealth player. They tried running him out the front door, playing with the lefty forwards, and didn't quite mix in, but he also had some he had the situation where he was playing college hockey, so he could never join the team until late March, maybe April, so he missed tons of time, never really had a good sync with them, but he was local to BC, so they kept him around for a couple of years, traded him to Buffalo. Buffalo puts him out the back door, and he had a phenomenal game. So I think the Stealth don't do a good job of taking young players and putting them in D or transition when they were forwards. They just assume they are forwards. But other teams like the Cornwall brothers, they were both great forwards in junior, but they came to the pros with the Roughnecks and Rush and played out the back door, and they're good. So I'd like to see the Stealth do that in the future and not have people like Mitch Jones get traded away and then come back and see them be great later. So that was a long way of talking about the Stealth during this game. But it was fun to watch. I think both goalies got chased, which you don't expect to happen, but it was... When you get into OT and then going up and down, everybody gets a little bit nervous, but not Mitch Jones. He was just running and gunning the whole time. Great action. Did you see anything on this, Melissa?
Unfortunately, since it was Friday, that meant I 100% could not watch it, and this one was only on Fox. But it's kind of crazy to see the Rush have 2 players with 9 points on the night, with Robert Church getting 5 goals and 4 assists, and then you had Mark Matthews getting 2 goals and 7 assists. Is just not something you see very often, so it's kind of crazy. I mean, the only player on the Buffalo Bandits was Stainhouse, and he had 7 points on the night, so 1 goal and 6 assists. So that's pretty crazy. It sounds like it was a really exciting game. I really would have liked to have seen this one, but unfortunately this one's only on Fox. But especially when you look at just 18 goals. You think you should win if you score 18 goals and have 2 players have 9 points on the night. Yeah, you should probably have won. And for it to come down to overtime and to lose, it's just, wow. I kind of want to watch this game now. It's not fair.
Especially for a team that's been known to be one of the better defensive teams in the league for the past 4 or 5 years. For one of those kind of teams to score 18 goals and still lose is unbelievable. Okay, next game. What did I have as the next game? Okay, Vancouver, Colorado. I imagine you guys have a little more rooting interest in this game. I was just looking for an exciting game, and I didn't see it until this morning. I managed to record it. It was on TSN2 in Canada, so I recorded it on my PVR, and I did know the score watching the game this morning, but I watched it this morning and enjoyed it. Um, yeah, so there were a couple of controversial things in this game. Melissa, did you see this one?
I did watch this one. This was definitely one of those games that we've talked about that sometimes knowing the score going into it actually makes the game better than when you don't have any idea what's going on. Vancouver just plain dominated Colorado the first half. Colorado was playing sloppy. They were dropping passes. Even the announcers commented on the number of dropped passes John Grant Jr. had. So something was definitely off when they came in. The Mammoth defense was giving Vancouver really, really solid shots on net. I mean, you can't blame the goalie too much when Ward is facing basically one-on-ones with really powerful offensive players like Dutch. I mean, Dutch is known for his scoring ability. So when you're giving them opportunities like that and they're capitalizing, there's only so much your goalie can do. Second half was completely, well, I wouldn't say the second half was completely different because I would say the third was still very much in the Stealth's favor. It was the fourth quarter that all of a sudden just what in the world happened? Mammoth came alive and all of a sudden it was like the Stealth had picked up the sloppiness and they were giving Mammoth just a little better shots, and Jones just was on fire. He had a natural hat trick. He had a sock trick. I mean, he scored 6 goals in the fourth quarter. And so one other Mammoth player scored. I think it was Caleb Crawford. And that ended up being the game winner. There was definitely some controversy, and I think it's very warranted because from what we saw, and we rewound it and replayed it a few times, I definitely still agree. It does look like Bouquet scores on himself. And the extra controversy going with that is the fact that Adam Jones had the ball and scored immediately after, and it wasn't challenged, and the ref happened to have his back turned because the play was getting ready to start. He had just whistled it in, and the ball just rolled out of the back of Bouquet's net, his stick. So, yeah, there's definitely some controversy there. Obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean that the Stealth would have won and that the Mammoth would have lost, because that would have changed everything that happened after that. But it's definitely one of those situations that when you're watching your team, you're like, oh my god, that may have been the deciding factor in the game. And for the Stealth to kind of struggle in the fourth quarter and only have 1 goal, and the Mammoth just being on fire, it was a crazy game. What do you think, Tyler?
Yeah, I've been a little hot under the collar since the own goal. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind from what I saw. Whistle blew. Bouquet botched the ball like a third-grade goalie. I've seen that happen in youth games, never in the NLL. It was in the net after the whistle had blown in play, and I think Mark Giardino, I can't remember pronounce the last name, but he just blew it in, looked up for the outlet pass, and didn't see it right away, and looks back, and by that point he'd fished it out or was fishing it out, and he didn't know what he was seeing, so he couldn't call it a goal. This morning, Doug Fritz, the NLL_PR Twitter account, said the Stealth could have challenged that, but they didn't have any challenges left because they'd already used them, which in my mind means, hey, that was totally a goal, and they should have challenged it, but they couldn't. Not, hey, there was nothing to challenge there. I don't know what you guys are talking about. It was like, oh, we got to talk about this because he scored the goal and it wasn't called. They're not going to change the result of the game. They can apologize. They have to address it in some way. They could sit the ref for a game. They could do something like that. There was some refs in the last 2 years got demoted or sat down because of some bad calls, and Giardino is one of the best there is. He does Man Cup games in the summer. He's top 3, 4 NL refs, but he blew that call, and there should be a consequence. The bright side to the situation is that it wasn't a playoff game. The whole challenge replay system stems from the Stealth at the Mammoth in '07. Jeff Sawicki and Luke Wiles both in the crease, waiting for the ball to roll across the line, and it did. And it was called a goal, and the Mammoth fans had to sit with that for an entire off season, and we can move on from this next week, hopefully. So that's the bright side to this happening during the regular season for me. But yeah, Melissa said it was a 2-goal swing because Jones immediately scores afterwards, and would have made a huge difference to if he wouldn't have scored. They would have been down to yet another goal. Huge difference. That's that. Wait to see how that plays out from the league. In the game, Stealth rookie, I think Thomas Hogarth, his first game ever, maybe his first touch ever, he gets a score early, first goal of the game for the Stealth, run the floor from the D end and catches it and dives in, and so it was great. Second time in a few weeks that the Stealth have had a rookie touch the ball and score. Ryan Wagner did the same thing. So it was they're getting the kids in the game early, and it really energizes the team. They kind of took off running from that. T-Rich started in goal. That was unexpected by me. I really thought he was coming in to be the backup, but apparently he's not. I don't know if they're going for the alternating Royk Richards old approach that the Stealth used to have. It'll be harder to tell now because they lost. So they're like, oh, we're just not playing T-Rich because they lost, or we're not playing T-Rich because we're alternating in Eric Penny next week. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Jeff Molesky had his best game I've seen him play in a couple of years. He was very up and amped for this game, and he got to exact his revenge on the Mammoth captain Dan Coates. They had a little fight there to settle a situation from Dan Coates when he high-sticked Cliff Smith and gave him a concussion, and Cliff hasn't played since. You watch that fight. They're ready for it, and as they're fighting, the way I would describe it is Dan Coates was fighting to defend himself. He's like, I just got to get through this fight. And Molesky was just walking into it like, I'm going to annihilate this guy. And they didn't annihilate him, but he won the fight. And he was never on the defensive. He was just going to go finish the situation that started when Coates high-sticked Cliff.
Yeah, I think Coates got maybe 1 or 2 hits in. It was very, very, very one-sided.
Yeah, I mean, it goes when that happened a month ago. That's the game when Molesky got kicked out of the handshake line, and apparently it was a good choice because this would have happened. Is the apparent situation. So yeah, but he was, but all sorts of energy from Molesky. Like he was clearing the ball, hustle. It was great. Let's see. 2 p.m. start time was screwy. I think that probably affected somebody like John Grant Jr., who's so used to the routine of having probably a nap during the day and everything, but he had to play early, and that was everybody was a little bit off their rhythm. Stealth had a hot start, but still, it's not the time they're used to playing. Nobody is, and I think that affected everybody a little bit at some point.
Well, it definitely affected attendance. I mean,
oh yeah,
you could definitely see it was down, but there was also a lot of events going on yesterday, some big ones. We had the Cup Classic, so the Avs and the Red Wings were playing at Coors Field, and it was a hot day. We actually got up to 70 degrees yesterday, which is slightly unusual in February for Colorado. And we had the Polar Plunge for Special Olympics going on yesterday, so there was a 5K and all that, and that went on until afternoon, and that's actually turning into a pretty big deal. So you had 3 events right there, and I could probably list a good half dozen if I did some research. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of crossover between lacrosse and hockey fans, and you get a chance to see a unique outdoor hockey game. You're not going to go to the Mammoth game. Stealth players made it to the hockey game after the lacrosse game. So it was the Mammoth had no chance. I didn't remember to see what they announced, but huge swaths of empty seats on the lower level.
Announced attendance was just over 14,000.
Yeah, that's not turnstile.
Yeah.
That's tickets sold. There's no doubt.
Yeah. So that's that. Let's see what the league says about the situation. If they make any changes, they can run 3 refs in the playoffs, but not in the regular season. Maybe they should run 3 refs, and this wouldn't happen. You got one guy can just watch the ball. And South will bounce back. It's heartbreaking, but it's a regular season, plenty of time to recover. Thankfully, Calgary lost, and they don't lose any. They're still tied in the standings on the win column, so it could be worse. What do we got next?
What do we got next? I guess next would be Toronto and Rochester, and this is the only game this weekend that wasn't decided by a single goal. This was about as far from that as you can get. I certainly didn't see this coming. I picked Rochester to win this game with the sort of a caveat that if it's the same Rock that played last week against the Bandits and they put up a good effort, they might be able to take out the Nighthawks. I did not see them slaughtering the Nighthawks. It does seem odd that, and I meant to go through this before the show, I never did, but only a handful of games have featured a team that scored 6 or fewer goals in the last, say, 3 or 4 years. But I think at least half of them have been the Nighthawks. It's weird. I think there was a weekend, either last year or the year before, where they only scored 3 goals in one game, and then the next week they only allowed 3, or something like this. But it's just weird how often the Nighthawks are involved in these games, considering how good a team they are. But they did not have it on this night, and the Rock did. As I said in my game report on my blog, that when the Rock play like they did on that night, they're going to win most of the time. And when the Nighthawks play the way they did, they're going to lose most of the time. And when they both happen at the same time, you're going to see a 11-goal game. And Dan Dawson just didn't have it. He was missing the net all night. He was missing teammates with passes. He just didn't look like he was quite there. He even took 2 penalties, which is unusual for him, including a headbutting one. How does somebody who's 6'5" headbutt somebody without dropping to his knees? So that was a little odd. Cody Jamieson also took 2 penalties, and the best part as a Rock fan was that Jamieson and Dawson took penalties at the same time. So the Nighthawks lost those 2. The Rock lost Billy Hostrauser. He went to the box at the same time, so we still had a power play. But Dawson and Jamieson both going to the box at once was pretty awesome. Yeah, the Rock played really, really well. I mean, the 2015 Rock were back in this game. Nick Rose was outstanding. Didn't score, but you got to work on that. But his goaltending was outstanding. He just had a great game. The defense in front of him was also great. The offense was clicking all night, as as an evidence from 17 goals. Casey Byrnes had a sock trick, and of all the Rock scorers to pick up 6 goals, I wouldn't have put him at the top of the list. But he had a great game. Steph LeBlanc had a great game. Colin Doyle had a great game. Considering Brett Hickey wasn't there, 17 goals from the team without Hickey is pretty good. Dan Lindner had a great game. He scored a really beautiful goal as well. Yeah, I don't know what more to say about that other than every part of the Rocks team played great. Most parts of the Nighthawks team did not. Yeah, that's about it for me. Melissa, did you see this one?
I didn't see this one, but it was very surprising to see the score. I definitely picked Rochester, but that was because, as we said, did Toronto win the previous week because they're finally over that hump, or was it a fluke? And maybe this is kind of telling us that, yeah, the Rock have broken out of whatever thing was causing them to stumble, and they might actually be a team to reckon with the rest of the season. So, yeah, it's crazy to see Rochester fall off the way they did in this game. Not to take anything away from the Rock, because obviously they had they had to have a good offense too. But yeah, just to see Rochester with only 6 goals against a team that was 0-7. Did they get up to 7, Graham?
1-6. They were 1-6 at that point.
Okay. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. Did you see this one, Tyler?
Yeah, because the that early start time in Denver, I was able to tune in and watch this one. It was a lot of interesting plays and calls, like Hostrauser taking both Dan Dawson and Cody Jamieson to the penalty box with one single play. Bill Greer got dumped into the Rochester bench, punched in the face, and got a penalty. Things like that were unexpected, but I think in honor of the Oscars tonight, I'm going to go ahead and open the envelope for best NLL player that was hurt, and it's Josh Sanderson. He is making a difference this year with when the Rock have them and don't have them. I think, Graham, you got the numbers here. The goals per game is off the charts, and they're night and day. And even losing Hickey, they're like, it doesn't matter. They've got what they need to produce and win games. And guys, 37, 38, 5'0", and an incredible spark plug that drives everything. Pretty amazing game. Rochester is got me worried that they're not doing anything. They're not clicking. I mean, they beat the Stealth, and that appears to have been a miracle compared to some of the games they've played this season. And they're I don't know, they're aging or they're falling off, whatever the reason is, but they're not looking sharp. Any other thoughts, Graham?
The Nighthawks are traditionally, but in the last 5 or 6 years anyway, seem to be a slow starting team. I think in all three of their championship seasons, they started off, 500 at best over the first 4 or 6 games, and then gradually got better, and by the end of the season, they were unstoppable. So I'm guessing this is basically part of that, though. They're now 7 games into the season. This is about the time that they would start to put things together. Obviously not on this night, but I didn't mention Matt Vince, who was not sharp at all. He was pulled after, I think, 7 goals. And Angus Goodleaf did a pretty decent job in relief after that. He certainly made a number of surprisingly good saves. Maybe not surprisingly good, because Goodleaf has been one of the top backups in the league for a couple of years. He just doesn't get an awful lot of chance to play behind Matt Vince, but I thought he played really well. And in a normal game where his team is playing up to where they'd normally be, he gave them a chance to stay in the game and win. But they were obviously too far behind at that point, and their offense wasn't doing anything. So good job by Goodleaf, but it wasn't enough to save the team. Okay, I guess we can move to Georgia, New England, which was just a couple of hours ago. And I saw the first half of this, and then I saw like the last 5 minutes or so after I saw on Twitter, "Oh my God, you got to watch this," kind of thing. And I really enjoy watching this Georgia Swarm team. They just look like they're having fun. Their passing is amazing. They're just passing all over the place and trying to set things up. I don't know if these are set plays that they're trying to do or they're just passing back and forth until somebody's open. But they seem to pass an awful lot, and you don't see an awful lot of drop passes either. And I know, obviously, they've got Miles and Lyle Thompson who've played together a lot, and I think they've played a lot with Randy Stotts as well. But it just looks like these guys have been playing together forever. They just know, everybody knows where everybody else is going to be, and they're a lot of fun to watch and very dynamic offense. So the first half of this game was back and forth. New England, as we've said before, I think is for real. We can stop saying, okay, maybe they'll be good in the beginning and then fall off, but they're still going, and they're a pretty exciting team to watch as well. So these two together were a lot of fun to watch. Then I went over to the Saskatchewan-Calgary game, and when I heard this one was getting close in the last few minutes, I went back to this game and watched the last 5 minutes of this. And the last 5 minutes of this were outstanding as well. Georgia tied it up at 13. and then Sean Evans put New England ahead, and then Georgia tied it up again, and then Kevin Crowley put New England ahead, and then Georgia tied it up again with 30 seconds left on the clock, and Kevin Crowley scored with 4 seconds left to give New England the win. So yeah, that was a lot of fun at the end of the game. Yeah, these two teams are both a lot of fun to watch, and another high-scoring one, another one that came right down to the wire, another one-goal game. It's pretty typical for this weekend, anyway. Tyler, did you see this one?
I got to watch part of it. There was a big Lego Expo downtown Portland this weekend, so the 2 p.m. start time yesterday I couldn't go, but we went this afternoon when my team wasn't playing. So I watched the start of it and then left, and I left it up on the big screen, and the summary my wife gave me as she was looking at it texted me. She says, Kevin Crowley is good. Which I replied, if Crowley ever notices that himself, he'll be a beast. She says, New England's defense looks flat. They're late getting to the ball. Their offense looks just fine. And Georgia just seems faster on O. And the New England O and Georgia D are well matched. And Sean Evans got a delay game call because the refs didn't reset the shot clock. So I guess the refs are having trouble everywhere this weekend. Yeah, third quarter lead for Georgia there, at least 2 goals, but no quit in New England. I think they're used to playing Sunday games at home. They just weathered that, and they look good. They look really good. The coaching staff has got them in the right places, I think, and got them thinking about the right things, and Sean Evans is a huge difference maker. Again, to I think every week now. But they're unexpected, but exciting to watch. I put their games on now. I want to see what they're going to do with because I still have the doubts. Like they're the old Wings. They haven't been good in a decade. They couldn't do it again, but then they go out and do it, and they're really onto something right now. Any thoughts here, Melissa?
I'm kind of bummed. I guess I wasn't paying attention to which games were on today, and I didn't realize there was 2 of them to watch potentially. So looking at these scores, I'm really kind of disappointed. Like you said, we've been kind of surprised with what the Swarm and the Black Wolves are doing, and so would have actually been kind of exciting. So unfortunately, I don't have anything to add to this one. It's crazy. Another high-scoring game. Just, do you see this? Well, Graham, you already talked about this one. You want to go ahead and take us to the next one?
Yep. Yeah, the next one was another close one from for Saskatchewan, who obviously played on Friday and went to overtime. And then on Sunday, they also went to overtime. But this one is a little different. And on Friday, they were pretty much even with the Bandits for most of it, certainly for the first half. And then I think in the third, the Bandits started to turn away. And they got about a 4-goal lead, so it wasn't a huge lead. And then the Rush came back and forced overtime and lost it there. In this game, the Roughnecks took off right away. They scored the first goal less than a minute in. And by midway through the second quarter, they were leading 8-2, and it just looked like this was just going to keep going and be a runaway victory for the Roughnecks. But as we've seen, as we just talked about, the comeback is the story of this season. So you're down by 6, you got a pretty good chance of winning, it seems. So the Rush liked that idea, and they scored 8 of the next 10 goals and tied it up by about the middle of the fourth quarter and even took a lead. Mark Matthews scored with about 4 minutes left and gave the Rush an 11-10 lead. And, of course, that late lead lasted for about 40 seconds before Westberg tied it up again. And we were off to overtime yet again. This one lasted a little longer. I think the Buffalo game was about 3.5 minutes or something. This was a little over 5 before Zach Greer put it by Mike Poulin. But Poulin and Aaron Bold were just outstanding at the end of the fourth quarter and in overtime. Each of them was facing breakaways or people just standing right in front of them on the doorstep and getting passes and just stoning them. There were all kinds of great saves in this one until Zach Greer put it away. So yeah, another exciting game, another one down to the wire. This was actually beyond the wire, went to overtime. But yeah, another exciting game. Melissa, I imagine you didn't see this one since you didn't know about it.
Yeah, I did see this one. But you know that the games between these two are exciting. So this is just one of those rivalries when they play, you just kind of tune in. What about you, Tyler?
I had to consciously choose to not watch it while driving home from the Lego thing because it's illegal, and a game this exciting I would have wrecked and died. So here I am.
Well, we appreciate that you didn't wreck and die just to watch the game.
Yeah, man. So I got home, flipped it on, and they were loading the 3 stars of the game. And then I looked up the score, and it correlated to the Rush getting the first star with Robert Church. Yeah, I wish I would have seen it. The Fox Sports stuff is just killing us with no replay. But it reminded me when I saw the 3 stars of that game that the 3 stars in the Rush and Bandits game on Friday night were atrocious. Mitch Jones scores 5 goals, including the game winner in OT, and he wasn't even given a star on the stat sheet. The NLL tweeted out a separate one that had him recognized as the first star of the game, but on the official stat sheet, he didn't get it. That was weird. I don't know what's going on in Saskatoon, but they did a bad job of picking the stars.
Well, if I look on the stat sheet now, Mitch Jones is listed as the first, Robert Church is the second, and Dane Smith is the third. So I don't know if that was updated later or if
I wonder if they copy and pasted from a previous game, but they wouldn't have picked players from the. Anyways, there's like DeRuccio had one of the stars as a backup goalie. Revisionist history there. If there was a replay on Fox Sports, you would see the original 3, because that's where I took my list from at first. Anyways, thank you, Rush, for beating the Roughnecks so the Stealth stayed tied in the win column. And there's still plenty of hope for this season. Just need the Stealth to win 2 games in a row at some point.
All right, I guess we can move on to our predictions. And, well, one of us wants to talk about this and the others don't. Last week I went 2-3, getting only today's games right, New England and Saskatchewan. Tyler was 5-0, so congratulations, Tyler. And Melissa had all the opposite picks from Tyler, so we won't go into that any further.
Hey, I had to pick mine first. He had mine to, copy off of and make his changes. Not fair.
Yeah, I looked at between the 3 of us who had the best record and picked the opposite of that person, which is the most logical thing to do. And it worked out really well.
It did seem to work, because we now have a new leader. Tyler is now in the lead at 18-19. And the fact that none of the 3 of us is even at 500 is kind of disappointing. But this has been a really weird season, as Melissa was saying earlier. Melissa is still second, only a game back at 17-20, and then there's me at 14-23, which is kind of painful. But Tyler, since you're in the lead, you get to give us your picks for next week first.
Yeah, I was ready to throw in the towel and pick him for the season. It was going so bad. So we have 3 games. Rochester at Calgary. Like I said, Rochester's giving me concerns. I have doubts in them, and then have to go on the road to Calgary, and Calgary plays well at home, even if they've lost at home this week just today. But they're a good team, and they can beat Rochester, and so I picked them to do that. New England at Colorado. Colorado's getting ready to run away with the West, which is kind of fine if they can keep beating up on Edmonton and Calgary. But I think New England battle first-place teams. New England can win, even in Colorado. I think New England, they've got this lack of fear. I don't know how to describe it, but they're like, we'll play anybody. We'll play our way, stick with it, and it works. And I think they can go into Colorado and sneak out a win. Finally, Buffalo at Vancouver. Cross-country trip for Buffalo. I always put some sort of mention into that and weight into that. I don't think it means anything, but still I think it's hard. Dane Smith will come in and score 8 points and continue to lower his season average, and the Stealth will get a win in my mind. because they don't ever lose 2 in a row, or I guess maybe they have because of their records, but they're going to get a win, and they very close to having 3 in a row if they pulled that off, but they didn't. Still, they're going to get the win, and with that, I will pass it to Melissa.
Yeah, this week was hard. Honestly, I would say this whole season has been very hard because you'll have a team play really strong one week and then completely flip the switch and play just the opposite next week. So I definitely second guessed and triple guessed and quadruple guessed myself on my picks. I'm also going with Calgary against Rochester. I think Calgary actually has been playing stronger than what their record shows. The fact that they've had so many 1-point games and overtime games, I think actually is an important factor. Rochester's been just all over the place. And not to take anything away from the Rock, but you do have to wonder about what kind of a team Rochester is right now, the way they played this weekend. And so I think with Calgary having a strong loss, that they just are going to be a little hungrier and probably play a little more cohesive. So we're going to go with Calgary there. Colorado New England was really tough because I wanted to pick New England because I do think New England's playing strong. I think Colorado's going to underestimate them. But I also think this is one instance where the Mile High City actually might be to their benefit. It's not very often we get the East Coast teams out here. And the fact that Colorado played here this weekend and they're playing there again next weekend, I actually think is going to be better. And I think that's going to help for a lot of players who've never played here, potentially, because we just don't get the East Coast teams out here. Buffalo and Vancouver, this was tough, and I went back and forth on this one a lot, but I'm going to go with Buffalo. And it looks like I'm the oddball on that one. What about you, Graham?
Okay, Rochester, Calgary. Both teams coming off losses. Calgary's actually lost 2 in a row, both in overtime. Actually, I think they've lost 3 in a row, but the last 2 have been in overtime. So in the last 2 games, they've played well but lost, whereas in the last game, Rochester did not play well at all. Both of them will be looking to come out and sort of atone for the previous game. But like I said, Calgary played a lot better in their game despite losing than Rochester did. Now maybe that could mean a bigger change for Rochester, but I'm going to go with Calgary in this one as well. And I flip back and forth on this one. Like Melissa was saying, we keep flipping back and forth because these are tough. New England, Colorado, I was about to say I'm looking forward to watching this one, but I just noticed that all 3 games next week are Saturday night. 2 of them are at 9 Eastern and one's at 10. But the New England, Colorado game is only on ESPN in the US and only on TSN Go in Canada, so I have no way to watch it. So I will be watching Rochester, Calgary, and paying attention to the score on Twitter, and that's about as close as I can get. But yeah, this one was also tough. New England is for real, as we've said. Colorado obviously is for real because they're leading the West. Yeah, I think this is going to be an exciting game. One thing to watch, and we did mention it when talking about the New England game earlier today, was that Evan Kirk was really good. He had a great game, and has been one of the top goalies in the league so far this year. And I'm wondering if I'm talking myself into picking New England for this game because so far I have Colorado. But they are playing in Colorado, like you said, Melissa, and that gives them a bit of an edge. I don't know if the altitude makes that much of a difference, but the fact that they'll have 14,000 in quotes fans at that game, and we've talked about this before, Melissa, how they keep announcing 13, 14, 15,000, and you'll tell us, yeah, there weren't that many people there, but that may be how many tickets were sold. But in any case, it's a loud place to play, and there's a bit of a home field advantage for the Mammoth. So I'm going to go with Colorado, I think, there. And Buffalo, Vancouver. This one, I looked at the numbers and thought, okay, well, Logan Chess is having a great season. He's putting up all kinds of numbers. Garrett Billings can do that anytime he wants, and he certainly looks back to form. He wasn't playing, Billings-esque lacrosse while he was in New England last year, but he certainly looks back to the way he was when he was playing for the Rock. before his injury, and of course Reese Dutch can do that as well. But then of course you've got Dane Smith and Ryan Benesh, the most lethal duo in the league, I think, at this point, for Buffalo. So this could go either way. I'm going to give it to Vancouver and hope that the home floor advantage gives them a bit of a boost as well. So I guess that will do it for tonight, unless you guys have other things that you wanted to mention.
Nothing comes to mind.
No, I really don't have anything either.
Nope.
I already did the polar plunge, so I can't even talk about that.
Okay. I guess that will do it. So this has been another episode of Addicted to Lacrosse. For Tyler and Melissa, I'm Graham. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.